Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I wanted to tell you about a little bit of a change that I'm going to do. I was talking to the official father of the Digital Asset Investor channel about this, and so I'm thinking about doing this on my channel. I'm not thinking about it, I am doing it. We're not getting a whole lot of news out of Ripple lately, and so I decided that I would start to filter in some talk about some other digital assets that I'm interested in, not necessarily that I own, but things that I think are good projects, things that I've picked up along the way, or things that I know are good projects and that I know are being invested in by venture capital firms and different digital assets. Now, before I start to do that, and I'm not going to make any whole video about one of those, but I'm going to always be talking about Ripple, and I want to make sure everybody understands. Ripple would be the Rolls Royce, and the digital assets that I'm going to be talking about would be what? What's 2 or 3 rungs underneath a Rolls Royce? A Porsche? I don't know. But anyway, the point is that XRP is the one, but there are others that are going to do that I think will do well and will actually have utility. Even Brad Garlinghouse has said that. But I'm going to start talking about some of those projects. I've talked about Stellar, for instance, as being one of the digital assets that I think is going to do well. But we're just not getting that much information out of Ripple right now. And so I thought that it wouldn't hurt to do some of that. But I am going to be talking about Ripple a good bit, just like I always do. I'm never going to change that. I'm going to see this thing through, no question about that. Okay, now at the end of this video, by the way, or close to the end of this video, I'm going to play you a clip from one of Mr. B's videos that he did yesterday. I don't do this often, but Mr. B he gave a specific, he talks about a conversation that he had with David Schwartz himself, one of the creators of XRP in Singapore at Swell. Now, he's talked about this before, but I like the way he presented it and how he presented it, and so I want you to hear it. Okay, first I want to start with this. XRP Stewart, year progress. Now, remember, Ripple called this the year of the digital asset at the end of 2019. They wrote an article about it and called this the year of the digital asset, 2020. Year progress, 224 days left until January 1, 2021. CEO Brad Garlinghouse is even bolder, predicting that half of the top 20 banks in the world will actively hold and trade digital assets in 2020. This is Brad Garlinghouse's quote from December 2019. It's been a tremendous year for Ripple. He says, adding that the company will be disclosing more numbers and major announcements in early 2020. December 2019, Brad Garlinghouse. And he says, what do you think the major announcements will be? Well, I think it's going to involve, I think that PolySign is really what all this hinges on. And I think when you see PolySign come out, all of a sudden, what you're reading here is going to be a reality, because custody is the final piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. Okay. Now, James Rule sent me this, and I thought this was interesting. In Think We Trust, BlackRock is now the fourth branch of government. The company's new assignment, they're talking about how BlackRock has been assigned by the federal government to do all sorts of things. Now, he says the company's new assignment is much bigger version of one it took on after the 2008 financial crisis, when the Federal Reserve enlisted it to dispose of toxic mortgage securities from Bear Stearns, an American international group. This time it will help the Fed prop up the entire corporate bond market by purchasing on the central bank's behalf what could become $750 billion portfolio of debt. One part of the Fed's plan is to buy bond exchange traded funds. BlackRock itself runs ETFs under the iShares brand and could end up buying funds it manages. There are rules in place to avoid conflicts of interest. What are you talking about? This is one big conflict of interest. When the government gets in bed with private business, or private business gets in bed with the government, it is a conflict of interest. This is nowhere near how this country was set up at its founding. Nowhere even close. This is not capitalism, folks. This is socialism, and it's no different. I've told you the example on this channel before. Back in the financial crisis, Goldman Sachs was about to go down. Warren Buffett gets a call from Hank Paulson, gets a phone call from Hank Paulson, and they ask him to bail out Goldman Sachs, more or less. Warren Buffett takes, I believe it was preferred stocks that he got, but he was given from the federal government, he was given the assurances of the federal government on his investment, and that is not capitalism. That right there ought to be illegal in any world, okay? But it happened. I mean, you can go look at the history of it, and this is no different. This right here is government and private enterprise colluding with each other, and they ever since, and I said it after the financial crisis, once we had the bailouts, they opened Pandora's box, and the second that they started bailing out companies, it was over. No more capitalism. Now we live under something far different. Now at the end here, or in this part here, it says still the arrangement is bringing new attention to the company's scale and ubiquity. It's impossible to think of BlackRock without thinking of them as a fourth branch of government, says this guy, professor at Chicago. Now, when I see articles like this, BlackRock is now a fourth branch of government, do you know what it reminds me of? Well, I'll just play you this gem that I've played for you from Jim Rickards.
Vonnegut novel, Cat's Cradle. In the book, a mad scientist creates a new form of water molecule called ice.
Wait a minute, wrong clip. Hold on a sec. Let me pull it up. Write down the times that I'm going to do all these things, and so here's where it starts. It's at about 6:15. Here we go.
Start with some background and context, because I know this must sound hard for some viewers to believe. I was having dinner with a friend not long ago in New York City. We met at a place called Oriole, which is in Midtown. My dinner companion that night was a senior advisor to BlackRock. As you may know, BlackRock is now the largest asset manager on the planet. It directly manages $5 trillion in assets, and it oversees another $11 trillion through its Aladdin platform. That means one firm controls more money than the GDPs of China, Russia, and Japan combined. Anyway, my dinner companion happens to work directly for BlackRock's CEO. As we nursed our white wine and the evening wore on, she let something slip. If I remember her words, she said something like, "They want to tell us we can't sell." What was she talking about? Who was she talking about? I placed a few calls, first to my contacts in Washington, then to a few people on Wall Street. Soon I was on a plane for a series of meetings to London, to Geneva, back to New York, then down to South America. As I began connecting the dots, a pattern emerged. It revealed a network of more than 189 individuals positioned inside the world's major financial institutions. Some of them hold senior positions inside the IMF, World Bank, and every central bank in the G20, including our own Federal Reserve. These elites share one vision, and they're about to make it a reality. That vision is one world order, one world taxation, and one world money. They've worked for years behind the scenes preparing to realize that vision. They've literally rigged the laws of international finance. Everything is basically in place right now, and there's essentially no way to stop this from happening. When the crisis hits, they'll flip the switch, freezing the global financial system. That will give them time to reset the world economy according to their vision. As the coming crisis unfolds, President Trump will be powerless to stop it. In fact, trying to stop them would probably weaken the president's power altogether.
That is amazing, Jim, really. So what did these elites want from your contact at BlackRock?
Basically, they want to classify BlackRock as too big to fail. The technical term is Systemically Important Financial Institution, or SIFI. That designation normally applies to banks, such as Bank of America. If your bank gets the SIFI label, it means the government will bail you out first in a crisis. But it also means you must turn over control of your bank until the crisis subsides. In this case, they're trying to reclassify BlackRock, an asset manager, as too big to fail. If they succeed, they'll be able to freeze BlackRock when the crisis hits. BlackRock clients won't be able to sell. They won't be able to buy either. Their accounts will go dark indefinitely. and the elite operatives will take control of BlackRock's assets remotely via the internet. But our research shows that their ICE 9 plan goes much, much deeper than that.
Okay, that's what, every time I hear BlackRock, that's what I'm reminded of. And let's not leave this place without reminding you that Robbie Mitchnick left Ripple to go be the head of digital assets at BlackRock. Can't forget that one. And there's also a guy, I can't remember his name, that left BlackRock back in the day to go to Ripple. All right. Now, this is not Jeremy Allaire. There's a clip of Barry Silbert. There's a guy that asks him an interesting question, and then Barry Silbert. Now, remember, Barry Silbert is from the Digital Currency Group, who owns a part of Ripple and, I believe, Coinbase and just about every important blockchain company in the world. But he knows things, okay? Listen to this.
Earlier, Jeff, wasn't that, banks are necessarily going to be disrupted out of existence, but that banks will respond. And so my question to both of you is, to what extent can banks respond and be a meaningful part of this new world order, if you will, that you're describing?
Yeah, well, look, I think banks are going to face enormous headwinds over the next decade. Think about, we have a global recession, you have negative interest rates, you have banks that are, were built on brick and mortar infrastructure, and so they have to figure out a way to how to reinvent themselves to cater towards a mobile first digital consumer base, and the fact that if you want to wire money, send money, from New York to London, if you miss the cutoff at 5 p.m. on Friday, it's not getting there until Tuesday. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so there just has to be, the CEOs of the banks, I think, have to approach it a little differently than some did. And recognize that, look, the intellectual capital that's being poured into this space it's the best of the best, and the capital flowing in, the innovation that's happening. And look, I absolutely agree that from a DApp perspective, from a decentralized business perspective, there ain't a whole lot there. We've invested in 145 companies so far, and I got to tell you, the ones that are gaining the most traction are the ones that are building the infrastructure for the asset class, the speculative kind of use case. That's okay. There's amazing experimentation that's happening. There's really, really cool projects happening. And eventually, it is going to transform not just the gold market or the stock market, but banking as we know it.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I speculate
Okay, that's what I wanted you to hear that, because Barry Silbert, after the guy asked him this new world order, Barry Silbert basically says what Brad Garlinghouse has been saying for a long time about how ridiculous it is that it takes you so long to send money and all that. Anyway, he's an investor in Ripple. But okay, now let's move on to talking about Spring. I've got an interesting clip that I'm going to play for you here in a second. This is Spring. For those of you that don't know, Spring is like Ripple's incubator for other XRP use cases. That's the way that I think of Spring. They go and invest in companies that can possibly do new XRP use cases. So they tweeted this out. The Sum app by XRP Labs provides, which is Vijay Vin's project, which is also funded by, I think XRP Labs is funded by Spring, provides users with the basic tools to be your own bank, which include the ability to create, count, store, send, receive, and exchange value using the XRP ledger. But wait, there's more. And what this is, and I'm not going to go into it, this is their developer blog. And if you click on that, it'll give you all kinds of information about the developer. It's developer stuff, but it tells you what all you can do with this Sum app. The Spring, this Spring company is interesting to me, because we hear all the time about what they're doing from a development standpoint, but we don't ever really hear anything about what's going on with Spring from a sales standpoint. We don't ever hear anything about, we don't ever see any of these companies promoted in any kind of a way. It's a really confusing thing to me. All I hear is development, but you don't ever, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Not too long ago, there was an announcement. I'm pretty sure there was an announcement that Spring it was either Spring or Ripple was investing in an ATM machine, crypto ATM company. Well, you and I, all of us out here would love to know more about this ATM company. Is the idea to put XRP on the ATM, but we don't get anything from that. We haven't gotten anything about that. We don't even know if they're going to put XRP on the machine. In fact, I reached out to the company. I'm drawing a blank on what it's called right now. I'll find out what it's called. But if any of you out there know, because we're not finding this out from Spring or Ripple. If any of you out there know what the ATM machine company that they were investing in, if it is going to include XRP, I would love to know, because we're just not getting this kind of information. Okay, so back to Spring. Who runs Spring? Ethan Beard runs Spring. Okay, nice guy. Met him when I was in Singapore. Senior vice president of Spring. All right. This guy's got a long track. He was basically an angel investor before he went to Ripple for looks like about 4 years. There's a hole, in his resume because he worked at Facebook, and he was the director of Facebook platform. Then he was at Google before that. But this guy's like an important, he was at these companies in their formative years. And so but here's an old clip of Ethan Beard when he was at Facebook. Just wanted to show you this, and then I'm going to show you a clip of something he said at Ripple.
Interview with Ethan Beard, who heads up platform partnerships at Facebook, and in this one, he talks about some of the most popular applications on the social networking site. Now, Ethan, you're responsible for all partnerships and developers getting involved with Facebook, from the smallest applications to some of the biggest ones. Just explain how your job works and all of the different applications that are coming your way, and how many are on Facebook.
So, yeah, I love my job. I love working with developers of all different sizes. I get to talk to both great large companies as well as really interesting.
Okay, I'm not going to show you anymore. I just wanted to show you he looks a lot different in this. When he went to Ripple, by the time he was at Ripple, he looks like he had a complete makeover, new hairstyle, and the whole thing. But that's beside the point. I wanted to show you this clip from Ethan Beard. This is a clip at something called 500 Startups, and I'm sure this clip has been shown in the past, but I just saw it for the first time in a while. I can't even remember if I ever did see it. But he's on this panel, and this is a while back. It says October 11th, 2018. I'm assuming that's when this was. As you all know, and you see it to this day, there's many people that are like, well, XRP is a security, and they present that as being some scary reason that we shouldn't be invested in it. Well, I've said all along, none of these guys, that you don't get talent from Google and Facebook and from Goldman Sachs and from the CME group like Miguel Valles was. You don't get these people to come work at Ripple so that they can be working on a use case for something that could be called a security. They know it before they take the job, or they don't come and take the job, because ultimately that could get you in handcuffs. And so that was always a silly thing to me, this idea that the SEC is just trying to decide or whatever. Please. Well, Ethan Beard comes out and tells you in this clip right here, okay? He already knew.
I'm glad to see that a lot of that's been corrected this year.
Yeah, generally at Ripple, we've stayed away from token offerings kind of on all sides. I think the regulatory hangover is probably the piece that we've been most sensitive of. So while it's actually technically possible to issue a token on the XRP ledger, it's something we've never really pushed for. If anything, we've kind of discouraged it due to securities issues. It turns out that may not have been an issue, but it seemed like the smart thing to do at the time. So we haven't bought any of them. As an investor, so prior to being at Ripple, I was angel investing on.
So there you have it. That it used to. Let me play that one more time, just so you really let that sink in.
I'm glad to see that a lot of that's been corrected this year.
Yeah, generally at Ripple, we've stayed away from token offerings kind of on all sides. I think the regulatory hangover is probably the piece that we've been most sensitive of. So while it's actually technically possible to issue a token on the XRP ledger, it's something we've never really pushed for. If anything, we've kind of discouraged it due to securities issues. Turns out that may not have been an issue, but it seemed like this.
Turns out that may not have been an issue. So he said technically they can issue tokens on the XRP ledger, but they didn't want to do it because of securities issues. But that turns out that may not have been a problem anyway. Well, now they're talking about issuing tokens on the XRP ledger.
Hi, this is David Schwartz, also known as Joel Katz, CTO at Ripple. I recently released a list of suggestions for XRP ledger development, and I got a lot of questions about the stablecoin proposal, so I thought it might be helpful for me to walk through what I have in the design to give people a better idea of how I intended the system to work. So first of all, it's a collateralized stablecoin. That means tokenized assets whose value are expected to remain constant in some unit.
This is an entire video about issuing tokens on the XRP ledger, and they can talk about it now that they know it is not a security. So there you go. Okay, now here's Mr. B's video. I want you to listen close because you may not have ever heard anyone talk about and something like this where they actually asked David Schwartz himself the question. And Mr. B, and by the way, if you don't subscribe to Mr. B, he's Mr.B XRP. Okay, this guy's one of my friends. He's a smart guy. He's actually in real estate. Now, what he's talking about in this clip is he's pretending that, and I'm not playing the full clip. I'm starting at the on-demand liquidity part. But for those of you that don't know, you have RippleNet, which does not use XRP, and then you have Ripple's on-demand liquidity product, which is which does use XRP for settlement. Okay, and he's going to take you through what Mr. B is doing here is he's saying, okay, if I'm a salesman and I'm talking to a bank and I'm trying to sell the bank on RippleNet and then on-demand liquidity, and he takes you through that. And then he gets to the on-demand liquidity part, and he tells you about the question that he asked David Schwartz. And I was in the room when he asked him the question, by the way. But listen to what he says. And this is him talking as if he is trying to explain on-demand liquidity to a bank and how it can help them. And he tells you that there's a missing piece to what Ripple's sales pitch is. Watch this.
Those who use a digital asset XRP to source liquidity can do so in seconds, freeing up capital and guaranteeing the most comprehensive rates available today. Now, I'm going to go off script. I'm going to go off their website and go on to say what Brad Garlinghouse has said. Mr. Banker, you and all your banker friends can bring their $27 trillion of Nostrum money back home to use any way you want, because you no longer have to have it there in all the countries, in the 180 countries that you actually have these accounts, okay? And I would go on to their website. You'll have a 40 to 60% cost savings. It takes 3 seconds for total settlement, and you can do these payments 24/7, 365 days a year. Wow, holy smokes. Now, if you present RippleNet to a banker and then you talk about ODL, obviously they're going to go, wow, this ODL thing is amazing. I want to bring my money back home. I want to bring my Nostrum money back home. This is fantastic. Here's where the glitch is. The glitch is this. There's no way this presentation ends with the Ripple representative saying, but Mr. Banker, here's the problem. We don't have enough liquidity in the system, and the value of XRP isn't high enough for us to move large volumes of money. So we're just going to sit back and wait and hope that there's a bull run someday that drives up the value of XRP to that perfect number so that you and all of our other customers can start sending their money around the world. Sorry, guys, it doesn't end that way. There's no way that's the presentation, okay? There's no way it happens. So I actually went to Swell last year and just so you guys, and I had a chance to talk to David Schwartz, and I asked him this specific question, and I'm going to tell you what he said. But before I tell you, I want you to know something about that trip. It was a 25-hour flight. I was a mess, an absolute mess. My feet blew up so big they couldn't fit in my shoes. I had to literally walk around the plane every hour just to keep from swelling up. It was insane. We landed, and then we had like 6 hours before we were going to have our big meeting with David Schwartz and the whole dinner affair that they put on for us. But by the time we landed, I mean, it was unbelievable what that flight does to you physically, and the times are off and everything else. But I feel so lucky that for whatever reason, the moment that I got to meet David Schwartz, I had absolute clarity. My brain was straight. Everything was good. I was able to ask him every question I wanted to that I thought he might answer. And this was one of them. So I said to David, David, I'm a salesman. I've been a salesman my whole life. I told him I was in real estate, and he said, I'm so sorry, which I thought was hilarious. But I said, look, here's the thing. There's no way that you guys do your Ripple presentation and it ends with, and if there's ever a bull run, we'll have enough liquidity in the system and you guys will be able to use ODL. It just can't end that way, David. Tell me about how does the presentation end? And in perfect David Schwartz form, he gives me the following answer. He says, that's the biggest challenge, is controlling the expectations of the customer. So the point is, he didn't answer my question. Now, I went on to ask him about the rising value of XRP. And you guys may have heard me say this in other videos. For those who haven't, I'm going to give it to you right now. I said to David, there's two schools of thought. The first school of thought is that the price is going to rise slowly over a long period of time because of small payments being made. And the other school of thought is there's going to be a mass adoption take place. Everybody's going to get off the bench at the same time, and it's going to drive the value of XRP. And David looked at me and said, well, here's the problem with the slow and steady scenario. He said, if the price moves slow and steady, investors will take notice and they will buy it up, and it won't stay slow and steady for long. So he certainly just didn't agree with slow and steady, that was for sure. But my point of this video is that there is that missing piece of the puzzle. The missing piece of the puzzle is how are these bankers, why are these bankers being so patient waiting? How is it, do you really think they don't know how and when they're going to be able to use ODL? I mean, how do you present this product to them and say, hey, we'll get back with you when we can finally use this thing? I don't believe that happens. I think NDAs are for a reason. I think that 800 bankers went to Swallow last year for a reason. And they all know what's going on. They're all on the inside track. I'm not, guys. I don't know how it's going to happen.
I think that he just knocked it out of the park with that. And that is so true. They all do know. They do know. There's no question they know. That's the whole reason I can get up every morning and do this channel over and over and over and keep talking about this company, Ripple and XRP, is because I know what I own. And Mr. B just described. He described to you what we're dealing with here, folks. This is a lot bigger. This isn't just some digital asset. This is something much bigger than any of you realize. Okay, go give Mr. B a subscribe. He did an excellent job there. I thought that was great. Now, told you I was going to start talking about some other digital assets. Now, for those of you that don't know, Ethereum was proof of work. We know on this channel that proof of work does not work, which is why Bitcoin will only ever be a store of value, because it can't be used for anything else. It's too slow. Excuse me. Ethereum 2.0 is being created, and it's going to be a proof of stake. But there's a problem. Ethereum, nobody can really answer any questions about this. So my question to anyone who would consider using Ethereum, is there anybody who wants to go use Ethereum right now, which everyone knows is going to be replaced? Is there anybody that's going to want to go buy or use Ethereum to build a smart contract on? Of course they're not, because it's going away. Well, but nobody can tell you. Ethereum 2.0 reminds me of the Lightning Network. Everybody talks about it, but nobody knows it has any answers on whether it's going to work, when it's going to be, how it's going to happen. How am I going to turn in my Ethereum tokens for Ethereum 2.0? This is an article that was written. Ethereum 2.0 is casting big doubts on Ethereum's value as an investment fund manager. And he says, over the past few weeks, there's been a strong uptick in excitement about Ethereum 2.0 upgrade. The excitement is surrounding the improvements the upgrade is expected to have on Ethereum blockchain. And then it says it is, they're talking about Ethereum 2.0. And then it says, Kelvin, while there are many expecting the upgrade to prove the investment case for Ethereum, one fund manager is arguing the opposite. Ethereum 2.0 could diminish the crypto's investment potential. Kelvin, whoever that is, of the Spartan Group, a crypto asset investment firm and advisory based in Southeast Asia, said he is currently more bullish on Bitcoin than he is on Ethereum at the moment. He attributed it to the assertion that the fact that they see considerably uncertain regarding the upgrade. Hence, their hesitance to be bullish on Ethereum as a medium to long-term investment. At the moment, I'm more bullish on Bitcoin. We're observing the Ethereum 2.0 transition closely to understand the crypto-economic implications and the impact on the Ethereum price. At some point, we may turn more bullish. So in other words, you can't have those kind of questions up in the air that have not been answered and not have everybody say, well, A, why would any company build anything on this? But B, at what point do you start seeing people looking for other alternatives and or bailing on their Ethereum investment? That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so I'm going to go back to what I've said. I believe that Cardano, okay, look, and again, XRP is the Rolls Royce. All these others are 2 and 3 and 4 tiers below it. But there are, now this week we found out Cardano had joined the Hyperledger product and the W3C. Well, when you're seeing moves like that, these are people who are going to be around for a while. And Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, I've been watching videos on him for the last 2 or 3 years. This guy has been doing nothing but working on improving this digital asset, this platform, for the last 2 or 3 years. It's all he's been focused on with PhDs, people, colleges around the world and all these academics that they've been doing papers on this and passing back and forth. You name it, they've been working on it. And Cardano is a smart contract platform. Well, not only that, they were in Davos, with Ripple. Watch this.
And research-first approach. The Cardano Foundation participated in multiple roundtables with the world's leading educational establishments, such as the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the Harvard University. These meetings resulted in the approval of a research grant request from Harvard's Berkman Klein Center to study blockchain governance. The Cardano Foundation has also signed letters of intent with potential launch partners for Goguen, our smart contracts layer. As such, a collaboration with Dust Identity will lead to greater transparency and accountability for global organizations. And the relationship with Finca will help democratize cattle as an asset class thanks to blockchain technology. And the Cardano Foundation's council will sign an initial letter of intent with LO3 Energy, a US-based provider of local energy solutions platform, as a potential Goguen launch partner. The foundation has also accepted an offer to implement a proof-of-concept integration with Scantrust to co-develop Cardano Connector, a blockchain-enabled provenance and authenticity tool. In a world's first, the Cardano Foundation, together with Gen2, has made a step towards bringing a NADA-denominated structured finance product to the market. Both organizations will work to make future issuance of ADA-denominated securitization products a reality. Davos, a Swiss town with 11,000 residents, became a springboard for many potential use cases as the Cardano Foundation continues to promote adoption, shape blockchain governance, and call for a wider dialogue on technology's benefits. The planet's biggest gathering of the brightest minds will continue to be a robust platform for more people to learn about Cardano. While the World Economic Forum's annual meeting has ended, our work continues as Cardano is just taking off.
Now, if you're watching this video and you did not just see the Cardano video that I just played, it's because I had to take it out because of a copyright strike. Sometimes this happens when they play music. And so if the video is not in this video that you're watching right now, you can go to YouTube and type in Davos 2020 recap, and it's a video from the Cardano Foundation channel, Cardano Foundation. Now, I wasn't planning on doing it, but I'm going to do it just to show you. I want to show you what Cardano looks like. Their token is Cardano ADA, and this token it's 5 cents right now. 5 cents. Okay. This thing, if you go back to the bull run of let's see what it was at. It was at as high as $1.20. Okay. So that just to achieve the all-time high would be quite an accomplishment on that one. But I mean, it would be a major surge. I do think that this has some potential. If this was on Coinbase today, I would start buying it. I'll put it that way. All right. Now, I wanted to show you this. This is Reinhard Kate. He's the guy that does the Ripple drops for Ripple. And he said, I think I found my new Ripple drop sign off. This is just a funny video that he put on here. I wanted to show it to you. This is one of those videos you watch and you're like, what did I just see?
Before the restaurant even opened this morning, there was a knock at the back door. An employee thought it must be another employee coming to work. It was a man with a gun. He robbed him, and then he took off running for these woods.
I was nervous when the gentleman walked in because he was shifting back and forth and a little edgy. But when he took out the gun, I knew he meant business.
The robber took off running with the cash into these woods behind the restaurant, but he didn't get far. 3 employees chased him down.
Manager Claudette moved with the quickness of a jungle cat as she leapt into her burgundy Tercel to give chase. I don't know. In a frenzied moment of knowing candor, I looked toward Darrell and Tino and uttered a stirring call to action. Dem Arby's boys, wheels up. Ski skirt.
Before the restaurant even
What in the world is that? I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family to go watch that Arby's video because I have no idea what I just saw. Thanks for listening.